All right, folks, why don't we go ahead and get started? Ralph, can you go ahead and cue recording? Lauren O'Connor with DEP is going to take the reins now. All yours, ma'am.
Oh, are you doing your presentation? Are you sitting up here? Or? Okay, I'll make it brief. Now I'm excited, yeah. See some kind of updates we have. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. All right, so this afternoon session is going to be, okay, so we looked at the wasted food scale, the EPA wasted food scale that Emily showed us earlier. And so looking at options for food waste recycling. So if it can't be donated, well, actually, reduction first. And then if it can't be donated or fed to animals, next is composting and anaerobic digestion. So leading the way into this afternoon session. Just some figures here. The latest data we have is 2023. We're compiling 2024 data now. But out of the 53 million tons generated in 2023, approximately 6% of that was food waste. Organics made up an overall total of 33%. And what we've seen is only about 3% of the food waste collected out of the municipal solid waste stream was recycled in 2023. So there's definitely some opportunities for more recycling of food waste overall. And looking forward to hearing more about community composting. It's something that's growing here in Florida. Every year we have more and more operations throughout the state helping with this community effort. And Charlie's going to lead the way into scaling up community composting operations and what he's doing in Central Florida. Take it away.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Lauren. And I'll just mention, that EPA hierarchy. Composting and anaerobic digestion are on the same level environmentally if the digestate from AD is being, used for a beneficial use or composted. So yeah, I'll just start by saying, my name is Charlie Pioli. I'm originally from Portland, Oregon. Went to college, studied economics at Northeastern University, and thanks to John and Walt with MSW Consultants, was hired as a solid waste and recycling consultant, moved down to Orlando about 8 years ago, and started my journey into this industry, which I love. And I mostly love just the opportunity and potential we have to make a big impact in diverting waste from the landfill, regenerating our soils for farmers, and getting rid of synthetic fertilizers, coming up with better alternatives. I'll start by saying, at my past job, I was doing a lot of waste characterization studies, and pretty often the bin which we would collect the food waste, yard waste, dirty paper towels and napkins, all this organic material that could be potentially composted, those bins would fill up and kind of dominate the table of material categorization. And you look at what's going to our Florida landfills, the lion's share is organic waste producing methane emissions and, getting our municipalities closer to needing more disposal. And that's the portion we should be addressing. You see recycling bins in every building in Florida, but you don't see composting bins. To be honest, front of house composting is a bit sketchy. I wouldn't recommend it, but we would just like to see more composting bins at every generator sector. Wherever people are eating, there's going to be food waste. The other thing is, as I'm sure most people here are aware of, methane versus CO2. I think Malik proved that there is some greenhouse gas emissions in the composting process, but overall it's a net negative of capturing that carbon and storing it in the form of healthy soil. The other thing, I started a community composting business because it really keeps the material local. It is not like how single stream used to be when we would ship everything to Southeast Asia and China, and it would get remanufactured and come back as products, and maybe end up in the landfill after that. With here in Orlando, we do all of our routes are within like a 30-mile radius, and our compost partners who process the food waste are on either end of the county. So we're keeping our routes efficient and really keeping that material local to repair the local soils. And, right now a buzzword is regenerative agriculture. Regenerative agriculture means kind of working with nature, not spraying, harmful pesticides and herbicides, not using synthetic fertilizers that might run off and, damage waterways. Like I was just over the weekend in Rainbow Springs, and, the wildlife there is so pretty. The last thing you want is to start an algae bloom from runoff of synthetic fertilizer and, have to deal with those consequences. So really the heart of regenerative agriculture, it starts with the soil, because farmers are beginning to realize and dietitians are beginning to realize healthy soil equals healthy plants, animals that eat those plants, and then ultimately healthy humans who, eat that stuff. Just wanted to go over this again. Not that it's a competition, but composting and anaerobic digestion are, yes, provide the same amount of environmental benefits from the EPA's perspective, only if there is a beneficial use of that digest state. So what is the big picture of solid waste here in Central Florida? Really, we're in the southeast region of the United States where trash disposal is some of the cheapest in the whole country. And, don't get me wrong, it's going up. Orange County Landfill has seen a 20% increase. It's pretty much going to be seeing a 20% increase year over year for the foreseeable future. But right now it's only $49 a ton, whereas in Massachusetts and other northeastern states, those numbers are almost 3 times as much. And believe me, in those states where trash disposal is so costly, diversion is front of mind. Recycling, composting programs, because they're running out of space. They really have no other option. And till Florida gets to that, we're gonna not be probably taking diversion as seriously as we need to. The estimated life of Orange County Landfill is about 15 to 16 years, and I would say now is the time to start coming up with those diversion programs. And one policy I presented to the Orange County Board of County Commissioners recently, and Mayor Demings, was a disposal surcharge of $1 to $2 a ton of MSW that comes into the landfill that gets pooled, and that creates a fund for diversion programs, pilot programs, reuse at the county level. Overall, just more waste infrastructure that needs to be in place, and then the haulers like us will come afterwards. They will be attracted. So ultimately, I just want to mention kind of the economic argument for recycling and composting, because the city of Winter Garden in Orange County recently axed their recycling program, and I was interviewed by a local TV station just in defense of recycling, and it pretty much boils down to, do we want these materials like aluminum, cardboard, paper going to the landfill and rotting for the rest of time, or do we want to keep them in circulation, creating new products, fueling jobs both in collection and manufacturing? And do we want to see that stuff, have that economic activity? And I think we now know that the environment isn't top of mind for a lot of people, but the economic argument kind of on its own proves that recycling needs to be happening. And yeah, Orange County, just look at what's happening right now in Miami-Dade County with after their incinerator burned down. They were relying on that to kind of dispose of all their trash. And once that burned down over a year ago, it's put them in a disposal crisis, not having the landfill space or incineration capacity to handle their trash. And their solid waste director literally wrote a letter to the Board of County Commissioners suggesting a moratorium on development, which this is Florida. You know, that's crazy that, you know, ending development in the state of Florida. So, but if you can't handle the trash, how can you just keep having 1,000 people a week flood into the state? So I will say we need to use Miami-Dade County as an example. And now their county commissioners are talking about railing their trash up to landfills in Georgia. So, you know, that's going to be a costly option too. Last thing, a buzzword I particularly love is the circular economy. And, you know, that is kind of like a mindset of not having that linear, you know, use to dispose model, but actually figuring out how to manufacture materials and keeping them in circulation. And then I think that mindset is here to stay. O-Town Compost, we have a number of corporate clients who are, you know, some of the nation's largest corporations, and they, you know, are sticking with that ESG model and are also kind of, you know, all about sustainability because they see that, you know, the future generations depend on, you know, that, and the environment depends on it. We cannot just keep extracting, so. It stands for environmental sustainability and governance. It's like if you're a corporation, it's basically, you know, showing that you're open to more than just the, you know, profit motivation, basically. So this was at a Wheelabrator in Massachusetts, and, you know, behind me is a wall of trash, but it really was, those years were very formative in starting O-Town Compost. And, you know, honestly, I loved the work. Even back then, it was exciting to get my hands dirty and, you know, really get a firsthand look at what kind of materials are in the waste stream. Some policies and incentives that we're advocating for at the state and local levels. I mean, right now, O-Town Compost, we serve the city of Gainesville, Orange, Seminole, Osceola counties, and soon we'll be looking to expanding to Hillsborough and Pinellas. So we're advocating for these policies wherever we go and kind of use Gainesville as the example of how this can be successful. Right now in Gainesville, you have a commercial multifamily food waste collection ordinances, and they were not enforcing that because there was no service provider in town until we arrived about 6 months ago. And now it's, you know, slow going, but we have a dozen or so clients, 2 multifamily apartment buildings, each about 300 units. And if you talk about waste diversion at a multifamily apartment building, it's notoriously difficult because, you know, all these people share one dumpster, one recycling dumpster, and they share one compost bin, but we feel like we found the solution, and that involves what we call the multi-res composting program. It involves each unit get a 2.5-gallon kitchen caddy. They have a compostable liner for that kitchen caddy, and when they fill it up every 2 or 3 days, they take it to the centralized cart location to drop it. And above that centralized cart is a dispenser for more compostable bags. So they can take a bag, put it in their pocket, go to lunch, or go to school, go to work. And ultimately, it works quite successfully. It also kind of weeds out those people who don't care. And if you're not going to participate, you're not going to make that trip to drop off your food scraps. So right now we've been composting at these 2 multifamily apartment buildings outside of UF campus. And we virtually have 0% contamination. We pick up twice a week and are diverting like 500 pounds on average from each one. So it's really successful. And yeah, disposal surcharge, I mentioned that. I think currently in Orange County, everyone was given a 96-gallon trash bin. If we had a variable trash billing system, otherwise known as a pay-as-you-throw curbside collection system, you could actually economically incentivize people to produce less trash and compost and recycle more. Currently, everyone has the same size of container, so whether you're me and my family, where we don't fill up our trash that much, but my neighbor is a hog who throws everything in the trash, I'm basically subsidizing what they're sending to the landfill, and we're paying the same amount. It would be, just like electricity and water, where we pay for our usage. Why is trash not like that? It is in a lot of communities around the country, but just not here. And then obviously one thing that would minimize a lot of the contamination that composters see in the state of Florida would be implementing EPR bills similar to what we see in Minnesota, Oregon, Washington, New York. Designing packaging so it's compostable, recyclable, or otherwise. So, I personally love that we're in all these diverse municipalities and markets, but Gainesville is really setting the tone, and we're committed to just working with the city as a template for the rest of the state to use, hopefully, if they really get in that trash disposal crisis one day and want to figure out how to do it. So I already kind of mentioned soil health equals human health, but a lot of why we love composting versus other methods of food waste recycling is because we built relationships with local farmers around Central Florida, and it's great to see them create this healthy soil with very neutral pH, high in NPK and nutrients. It's not like a straight fertilizer, but it's a soil amendment that provides that organic matter and really helps growers make it happen. So, and you notice it when you say eat a carrot from your garden that was grown in, we call it O-Town Black Gold, but it's just good compost. And you notice that carrot has that different flavor than a store-bought carrot that's sitting on the shelf for a couple weeks. It's because of its nutritional density is so much higher than that carrot that's been in transportation. So yeah, we're one of our partners, and where our warehouse is based in Orlando is under the same roof as Four Roots Farm, and they're building a 20-acre campus right there in downtown Orlando. And we're excited to have like a demonstrative composting site. It's not going to process much food waste, but it's going to be more of like an education center. And we would love to invite OCPS's students to come, get their hands dirty, witness how food waste is recycled back into compost. And then we're going to put them to work picking out the contamination. So this was just in 2024, how much food waste we were able to divert. But, it took us 3 years to divert our first 1 million pounds as a company. And now we're diverting about 1 million pounds every 3 months. So we just want to continue to see that increase at an exponential rate. We do accept meat, dairy, bones, dirty paper products, craft paper. If it grows, it goes. We do accept some BPI certified compostable serviceware as long as it's fiber products or bamboo. Our farm partners and our processing partners, they're not really enthusiastic about accepting BPI certified bioplastics. Number one, they too closely resemble single-use plastics. Their, loader operator can't tell the difference. And additionally, they just take a little longer to break down into soil. But can anyone guess what our number one contaminant we find in compost bins is? It's from the commercial food waste stream. That's probably top 5, but no. Yeah, that's actually number 1, but we don't, we try to tell people to take off the sticker, but it's ultimately going to get screened. It's not a big deal. We don't expect everyone to take off the sticker. But the number 1 contaminant we see is the latex glove, because people are prepping the food and then just happen to take off their gloves, toss them in there. So, we do sell compostable gloves. They're not great. They do break down in a matter of a day, but they're pretty flimsy. And I think our compostable product partner, EcoSafe Zero Waste, they should, work on a different model. So, but yeah, does anyone have any question about what you can and can't compost I guess programs differ wherever you go, but us, Live Renewable, Compost for Life, these are other community composters in the state, and I'm pretty sure they all accept meat and dairy. Although Beaten Path in Gainesville, they're a community composter, they don't accept meat and dairy and fish and bones and stuff, but that stuff has some of the higher concentrations of nitrogen. I think what makes our food waste compost products so strong is its diversity in feedstock. We're not just putting only yard waste with, wood waste. We're bringing in this wet, kind of diverse food waste material, pairing it with a carbon component, which is usually wood chips. It gives it that porosity too, so the oxygen flows. And most of our compost partners use the windrow method of composting. But ultimately, after killing all the pathogens, weed seeds and fly larvae, you're left with a really high quality compost product. For some reason, Florida compost is a little on the sandier side. And I think that is just from the wood chips. But you could argue that's good for drainage. You could also say that's how the soil here is naturally. So, it's soil amendment. Adding a little bit of sand to your soil is not a bad thing. So, what we do is we pretty much can customize any food waste collection program for any generator sector. Our main one, we have about 850 residential subscribers where we pick up from their front door. But we also have a dozen of office clients where our driver will go up into a downtown high rise and, empty the compost bins in people's break rooms. We always pair our office program with a lunch and learn, like a complimentary lunch and learn, so we can educate the office on how to compost properly and why it's important. Our green event service is a way that we like to tout you can compost front of house, because our green event service always involves a staff, O-Town staff, to be there and act as a waste ambassador to help answer questions, help separate the material properly, make sure there's no contamination. And you'd be surprised how much education is involved, but our clients, like at Orange County Convention Center, where trade shows frequently ask us to compost their show, they kind of like having someone there to educate their guests on, how to separate their material properly. And then we also do commercial clients. with our 48-gallon toter. We always include a compostable liner in that toter to keep it relatively clean, but our trucks do have pressure washers, so we're getting close to that time of the year where you need to make sure the operations are tight and there's no odors and pests. But the compostable liners are one of our secrets to adding another layer of protection from any flies or odors. So, and the liners break down in a day in the compost piles as long as they're in the middle of the pile and not on the periphery. And lastly, we sell compostable liners to our commercial clients as well as residential clients. The residential clients have access to a customer portal where they can order a long list of compostable products, liners, soil amendments, even special recycling service, which I'll get into a little bit later. Green events. So, I mean, we are serving Orlando, which there's, an insane amount of conferences and tourists. And if you really consider how much food waste is just generated in that Osceola, Orange County area, we need a solution for that. I kind of already mentioned this. This was, the multi-res composting program that we're doing in Gainesville. I've heard actually from another composter in Austin, Texas, where the city of Austin mandated multifamily food waste collection as well, but they didn't really give these multifamily complexes like a good template to follow. So right now in Austin, Texas, most multifamily buildings who are participating, because they have to, their bins are empty every week, said this composter, and it's not really making an impact, and it's just one of those ordinances that people are kind of shaking their head at. But, we don't want to see that in Gainesville, which is why we're setting up our programs for success, making sure that, the building manager, the leasing office is sending out a building-wide email routinely and reminding people what can and can't go in there. And if they have like a community garden on premises, we're happy to donate back that finished compost too. So the special recycling service was prompted after I went back to Portland to visit my parents, and everyone in Portland, Seattle, Denver, a lot of cities around the West Coast have like a little old milk crate on their porch, and that is this subscription service called Ridwell, where people can put their hard to recycle items like plastics, film plastics, textiles, light bulbs, batteries, and it's just picked up on a reoccurring basis. It's a very affordable service, but we figured we're already going to 850 homes every week anyway. Why don't we let our subscribers, order on an as-needed basis, like a special recycling set out for those hard-to-recycle materials that don't go in your curbside recycling bin. And, that's the list of what we accept. It ranges from $5 to $10 a pickup. Paint is a little hairy in our vans, but we can accept that stuff, and we take it to its proper end location after aggregating it in our warehouse. If you're like me, you just we're keeping this stuff in your garage, waiting for the day you're gonna drive past the, textile donation bin. This works a lot better for people, and I believe the key to waste diversion is making it convenient for people. And then since we've started our program with OCPS, every July we are doing a subscriber school supply drive where for free we'll just pick it up from our subscribers' porches, and people set out backpacks, notebooks, pencils, pens, and we'll just take that back, aggregate it, and then bring it to the donation drop-off to make sure, our students have the supplies they need. And, After the inaugural year of doing the school supply drive, I was honestly surprised how much our subscribers really donated. It was huge. And then, yeah, I like how textiles was mentioned as like a big opportunity for diversion, but textiles make up a lot of what's going to the landfill. They require a lot of water to grow the cotton, to produce the textile. And from an environmental standpoint, it needs to be in the conversation of diverting textiles from the waste stream. We partner with this company in Orlando, and our warehouse is actually like 2 minutes down the road from theirs. They're called American Textile Recycling Service, and they will just come pick up, our textiles whenever we've aggregated a few hundred pounds from our subscribers. And they're not just picking up stuff that can be reused or resold. If you have stained, ripped jeans, one shoe, a broken belt, they have different grades, and that stuff could either be turned into machine shop rags, carpet, insulation. So it is truly getting recycled. And my last slide is, just if you're interested in, reaching me or learning more about our program, we're really trying to, leave an impact here in Central Florida. And we have a team of about 10 or 11, but we're all pretty gung-ho about it. And just want to divert waste from the landfill is our mission. So thank you.
I totally get the front end part of this, what we can do from a consumer point. Can you talk about the market for it? And, is there enough market for compost? Is it a profitable business for you guys? I mean, otherwise you're just storing trash,
Yeah, so, when I started this business, it was composting with a pitchfork in my yard and processing the food waste as well as doing the collection. Ultimately, those are two different business models completely. So as we grew, we formed relationships with farmers, arborists, nurseries, and started to pay self-imposed tip fees so they could invest in their equipment and ultimately make sure it's getting processed and managed correctly. So we don't deal with finished compost, but we routinely get requests, to people looking to buy finished compost. Compost is in our business name, so people are often confused. But I would say there is a strong market. It's no longer, in Orange County, for example, there used to be the Monterey mushroom farm, and high nitrogen compost was their byproduct that they, for a while, would just, if you had a truck, you could pick it up for free there. But now, from what we're seeing in Orange County, a cubic yard of compost is going, screened compost is going for about $40 a cubic yard. So it is having, there is a revenue stream from that. It depends on how well the product is made, but we are seeing a stronger market for that finished product. Is that what you mean? What do you do with your compost? You mean with our food waste or compost?
Yeah, what do you do when you collect all this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing with it?
So we're primarily just the haulers. We bring it to our processing partners, and then we pay them tipping fees. And then once our truck dumps, it's their property. They keep the compost. We buy it back pretty often, because if you subscribe for O-Town Compost, part of the agreement is you get 2 free shares of finished compost per year. And for our schools, part of that program is we donate finished compost, but all that is coming out of our pocket. Our model is kind of designed so that we want to tell that story of like, this stuff is not trash, this is what it becomes. So yeah.
Hey, Charlie, talk a little bit about regulatory challenges, whether state or locally. If you're a hauler, you're hauling putrescible food waste. We've heard a lot about the challenges of that material. What challenges have you faced? And if you could change something from a regulatory standpoint, state or local, what would it be and why? And why is that a good decision?
That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, just starting from the onset, the big three things that you need as a hauler and are really hard to obtain are workers' comp, your solid waste haulering permit for whatever county you're operating in, and commercial auto insurance. So for a while there, we were kind of just doing it under the threshold, so it wasn't a big deal. I mean, I started in my Toyota Camry picking up buckets. You remember that Camry too, don't you, John? But basically, once we kind of got to a certain threshold, we, made sure we got those three things. And then we felt comfortable, like now's the time to start reaching out to municipalities, school districts, and telling them like we're ready to take on more. But until that, I don't recommend really operating like that. So the other challenges for, the collection side of things, flow control is a big hot topic here in the state of Florida. Palm Beach County is kind of notorious for just shutting down all their community composting operations in the state. And it was kind of sad to see a small community composter in that county just, basically went out of business because the flow control policy where food waste is considered solid waste or MSW. And, everyone and their grandmother knows that's not true. Food waste is a recoverable material that can be turned into compost. So it is kind of changing that definition at the state and local levels. For example, we're in one of our jurisdictions, they don't currently have a composting program, but they do have their own fleet of trucks. And, this municipality has their own fleet of trucks and has their own franchise. So they basically, it's pretty much not really, it's a very gray area, that the fact we're collecting food waste in there. But I'll just be open with their name. City of Orlando. And that's where our warehouse is located. Our office is located in the city of Orlando. A lot of our clientele is located in the city of Orlando. But it's a gray area, the fact we're picking up food waste there because it's seen as solid waste. And, we have tried a lot of different avenues to send their municipal code to their legal department and change that. But so far it's been unsuccessful. And I feel like, their solid waste department has not been, very willing to work with us. So.
I'd also like to mention that you have the challenges of working with the county versus the city, and having different regulations therein. So I'm sure that's a challenge as well.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, first of all, with some of your processing partners that you have to actually manage the composting aspect, what are some of the challenges, especially with the post-consumer waste, which very few facilities are processing, and as far as receiving and processing the material and any neighbor complaints?
Yeah, so, our processing partners are mostly concerned with the level of contamination we bring them. And I was just last week at one of our processing partner sites. Me and our fleet manager were picking up contamination for a couple hours. And, as long as I would say our contamination is in the 1 to 2 to 3% by volume range. So it's very manageable, but our processing partners still don't really have the resources to dedicate time to pick that up. And if you look at commercial composting sites all across the nation, that's any compost facility's number one cost is contamination. But as far as pre-consumer versus post-consumer, our commercial food waste is almost always pre-consumer. It's from the kitchen during prep. Our only post-consumer is coming from our 850 residential subscribers. And these are people who subscribed because they wanted to divert their food waste from the landfill in the first place. So we can almost guarantee there's going to be very little contamination or next to none, because these people are like do-gooders, I call them, you know. Occasionally there's like a husband who throws in plastic, but yeah. Yeah.
What about the bones?
So those don't break down right away, but we do notice after running through, you know, a 60-day composting process, they get very brittle, and then they just start to break. If the loader runs over them, they just pretty much get shattered into tiny little pieces. But yeah, those are great calcium. We look at it, and you know, it's part of that diversity of feedstock in the food waste compost. So.
And then lastly, for the hazardous waste that you're collecting, the batteries and such, are you taking them to the household hazardous waste center?
Exactly,
Okay.
yeah. Taking them to Porter Road Transfer Station, which is not too far from our warehouse, Orange County, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
And I just wanted to make point of clarification on the municipal solid waste. So everything that goes in the waste stream in the state of Florida, even a can, it's recyclable, but if it's in the waste stream, it's municipal solid waste. That doesn't mean it can't be recycled. As you mentioned, it is about flow control, and it's about what your municipality will accept or will contract to do. So the state of Florida supports food waste recycling very much so. Again, definitions, yes, we do have recovered materials. It's non-putrescible materials. By law, you know, the Florida legislature sets what recovered materials are. But food waste can be recycled in a county or a city. It's a matter of flow control and whether that municipality is willing to accept that.
So it's like a local decision.
It's a local decision. And the state of Florida does not get involved in flow control.
I mean,
and
it makes
contracts
sense
and
because,
zoning.
I mean, right up a couple miles north of City of Orlando, City of Winter Park contracts with us to
Yes.
pick up, even though they have a franchise agreement with big haulers. So.
Right, and I think that's just a big misconception in the state of Florida. Before, you know, everyone keeps focusing on the definition of municipal solid waste, and that's not really the issue. There are many things that are considered municipal solid waste that are recycled in the state. You know, just because it's in a definition doesn't mean it's not a commodity or source, as a source separated material doesn't become a commodity and can be recycled. It's what's acceptable locally.
Okay. So, yeah. Well, it's great to see municipalities here today because, you know, they're learning and I'm learning too, so. All right, thank you.
Oh, Charlie, I got one question, sorry. It's always me. I'm curious as to know why have you guys thought about composting as well? Is that something that is maybe in the pipeline? Because, I mean, if you're selling like $40 for a cubic yard, it seems like it could be a good little additional revenue stream.
Yeah, I mean, the way I started was composting and just being self-sufficient like that. That's called vertical integration in the industry, and I think it is in our future plans to also be doing the composting. That way, if we're doing the hauling and the processing, we can, you know, better manage the contamination. We can, you know, spot loads and see what kind of contaminants are ending up in those loads and make sure that the hauler, us in that case, would also be able to relay that information. So at times there is a bit of a disconnect between the hauler and the processor. But yeah, I mean, composting, the value of soil amendment and, you know, organic matter, which can repair soils only has to increase, because the way that we're depleting soil so fast, pretty soon we're going to have to grow all our vegetables like hydroponically. So we need to figure out ways to kind of repair our soils, and I see screen compost only going up in price. So.
All right, quick comment.
Quick comment is I have worms, like a worm bin in my pantry. It is not stinky. It's great. It gives me worm castings. I'm too lazy to even go the mile away to my community garden to drop my my compost. So just throwing it out there that you can do some of this little stuff at home as well. So it wasn't super expensive, and I get the worm poo, which I love for my garden. But even if I didn't, then it's still breaking all the stuff down. So.
And I will mention that we're in the same warehouse as this startup company called Wiggle Brew, and they have all these worm castings that we're currently taking out to one of our farm partners. And once you mix worm castings with compost, it's called vermicompost, and the price of a yard of vermicompost is like $120 a yard. You know, it's extremely valuable stuff, and plants like thrive.
I was wondering, but similar to the like food recovery, the prepared food, there's a value associated with it. Donations can be recorded for these corporations. Is there something to that effect for the food they're composting?
Yeah, you mean, do we track pounds diverted? Yeah, we do. Our driver, you know, is kind of responsible at the stop for lifting the lid, catching any contamination on the top, but then weighing or sometimes estimating within a pretty tight margin the pounds that we're collecting. And you know that the way our software works is that gets inputted on the driver's phone, and if you go on the otown.com website, that number on the banner at the top of the homepage is updated in real time. So you know, you can be tracking that, and customers can log into their customer portal and see their service history and overall their total pounds composted with EPA environmental equivalents. What? Oh, calling a donation. So I just, we don't really work with them to call in donations. We have been asked sometimes for events, and now I know of foodrecovery.org. I texted our general manager that link, so if next time we get asked, we will try to do that. But I don't feel like we have that opportunity too often. At a lot of events, you know, people didn't plan ahead of time, and it just goes in the compost bin.
I've got maybe a question here following off of what John said on the regulatory side. With you collecting paint, batteries, I'm assuming the light bulbs you're talking about are fluorescent?
No, we
No.
don't accept fluorescent because of the potential they could break.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have a Subtitle D permit?
A what?
Subtitle D permit, all right. So you're going to have to be careful on moving that type of material without, because you could get yourself in trouble that way.
Okay, well, I'll have to look that up because I wasn't aware. So, yeah.
All right, any other questions? All right, wonderful presentation. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
We're a little bit ahead. I'm going to suggest we go ahead. Patrick, we're going to turn it over to you and let you run. If anybody wants a cup of coffee, or do you want to take a break? Does anybody got to go to the restroom? All right, hearing none. We have coffee up here, some brownies. Help yourself. Let's go ahead and pull up Patrick's. So now we're going to go into anaerobic digestion. Oh, that's yours. Don't take 5. Let's just take 5 minutes, folks.